What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of The Danny Show. I'm your host, Daniel Cody, and this is where I like to give comments, reviews, and thoughts on all things wrestling. Before I get started, I want to thank all the viewers, all the subscribers. For all of you who are new, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe so you can be notified on all things from The Danny Show. As I get started, as we all know, Hell in a Cell pay-per-view is 1 week from this Sunday on June the 20th, streaming live on Peacock and the WWE Network. Likewise, I like to give throwback reviews on some of the pay-per-views from that past. And recently I gave my thoughts on Hell in a Cell pay-per-view from last year. And for one, how I appreciate that it had an actual ending. However, today I just want to have a little fun. As we prepare for Hell in a Cell, which is why I'm wearing red, I thought of something pretty fun we could do today. In my thoughts, today I want to do a little bit of fantasy warfare, which means I'm going to give a quick countdown on some of my favorite matches that I would love to see. Some are just fantasies, others may never happen, and others are very possible. So without further ado, let's get started with my top 10 countdown of fantasy warfare matches inside Hell in a Cell. First off, let's start at number 10. Randy Orton, the Viper, versus the Rattlesnake, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, a couple of months ago, Stone Cold Steve Austin did an interview on his show with Randy Orton as his guest. And a lot of people in the comments began to say how they would have loved to see Randy Orton go one-on-one against Stone Cold, and how it would have made an excellent dream match. Of course, I don't think Stone Cold can wrestle as much as he used to anymore, and Randy Orton is just as good now as he was when he first came in. So that would have imagined the Randy Orton of right now versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in his prime, Attitude Days. That match would have been excellent to watch. Now, bring the cell down, I believe that match would steal the show. And this is a fantasy warfare, but I still think it would have been awesome to see. They're both known for their cutter-like finishers, with Randy Orton being the RKO, Stone Cold being the Stone Cold Stunner. And both of them have been nicknamed after Snake. And of course, you have the Rattlesnake versus the Viper, both nicknamed after snakes. And I don't like snakes, but if there are two snakes I will like, it is the Viper and the Rattlesnake. The wrestlers, not the actual Viper and not an actual Rattlesnake. I don't like snakes at all. I don't like them. But I like those two wrestlers who are nicknamed after snakes. Will make a great match. At number 9, we have Karrion Kross versus the Demon Finn Balor, the alter ego of Finn Balor. Now, think about this. Finn Balor and Karrion Kross have faced off against each other twice. Both times Karrion Kross has won. However, both times they have stole the show at NXT TakeOver events. The first one was at an NXT TakeOver event. The other was on a live NXT show. Both matches were amazing to watch. And while both of them are known to be a little dark, at least Karrion, of course, with his girlfriend Scarlett, imagine bringing back the alter ego of Finn Balor, the Demon King, for a special night to face him, and then add Hell in a Cell. Now, it is NXT, so make the cell black. That would be fun. Or bring back the original gray colored cell. Doesn't matter. But I know it would make for an excellent match. NXT always has some of the best matches at their takeover events. So imagine them having a Hell in a Cell at one of their takeover events as one of their matches with those two involved. That match would steal the show. And that match is very much possible. However, we can't make any promises, but at least it's a possibility. So there's one dream match that we hope we can see someday. At number 9. At number 7, we have Randy Orton versus Roman Reigns. Why is this such an idea for a great match? Because Randy Orton is very experienced inside Hell in a Cell, but Roman Reigns has been inside the cell 4 times and has never lost. He has defeated Bray Wyatt, Rusev, and his cousin Jey Uso last year. 2 years prior, he had a matchup with Braun Strowman, who has unfortunately been released by WWE for whatever reason, and financial cuts, I guess. But however, they had a great match, but due to Brock Lesnar's interference, the match was called off, which I think absolutely sucked. And the fact that it happened on the anniversary of Mick Foley, who was the special guest referee of that match, and The Undertaker was also bad. Those two went through much worse 20 years prior, and they managed to finish the match. However, because of a few F5s, somebody couldn't at least roll over and put their arm over someone for the 1, 2, 3. That was injustice to me. That was one of the greatest injustices. Thankfully, last year, Hell in a Cell had a proper ending, and hopefully the same will be said this year. However, going back to my point, Randy Orton versus Roman would be an amazing match. Roman has never lost. However, Randy has great experience inside Hell in a Cell, defeating John Cena, Daniel Bryan, Sheamus, and of course, a very disturbing victory over Jeff Hardy and Drew McIntyre as of last year. And yes, he does have some blemishes against Mark Henry, another match with John Cena, and his first match with the master of Hell in a Cell, The Undertaker. However, having more experience, if anybody can break the winning streak against the head of the cell, as I will call him, it's Randy Orton. Randy Orton could be the one to stop Roman Reigns, the head of the table, the head of SmackDown as its Universal Champion, and the head of the cell. Randy Orton could get it done. Next, we have at number 7, this one's good. This is a fantasy match. It won't happen, but it's fun to think about it. The Fiend versus The Undertaker. Now that would have made an amazing match. I remember finding out that The Fiend was going to face Randy Orton at WrestleMania this year. A couple of weeks prior to that, they showed a throwback match of Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt before Bray Wyatt was The Fiend. Of course, Randy Orton won. And I begin to notice that The Fiend is facing off against Bray Wyatt's former opponents, being John Cena last year and this year against Randy Orton. The only person that The Fiend has not got a rematch on the behalf of Bray Wyatt for was The Undertaker, who defeated Bray Wyatt in 2015. I posed a question in the comments section during the match with Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt, the throwback match from WrestleMania 33, I believe. I posed the question, who do you think inside Hell in a Cell could win? 1999 version of The Undertaker or The Fiend? Because you can't just bring any Undertaker. You got to bring that Undertaker with his attitude from 1999 when he was darn near satanic. That's the only way this match would be fair. However, some said The Undertaker would take The Fiend straight to hell. Some said that The Fiend could defeat that version of The Undertaker. What do you think? 1999 Undertaker, the Dark Ministry version, or The Fiend Bray Wyatt inside Hell in a Cell? It would make an amazing match. What do you think? Who do you think would win? Let me know in the comments what you think. But either way, that would make an amazing match to see. even though we would never see it. It's fantasy warfare, and it's all for fun today. My thoughts on fantasy warfare. At number 6, this is a good one. We have Triple H versus Randy Orton. This match would make an excellent match for two reasons. Number one, both men are masters at the Hell in a Cell. Triple H being undefeated for a while before Batista came along and became the first to pin him. In fact, Batista and the Undertaker are the only two to defeat Triple H inside Hell in a Cell. Also, you have Randy Orton, who, as I mentioned earlier, is the master inside Hell in a Cell himself. Number 2, in addition to being masters at that exact caliber of a match, both men have an incredibly bitter rivalry, both bitter, personal, and professional. It wasn't just about who was better, but it got real personal in 2009 when Randy Orton caused harm to Triple H's wife. And that match became very personal. So years of animosity between each other, alongside the fact that both men are masters inside Hell in a Cell, that would make an excellent dream match. And there is a bit of a 30% chance that we might see that. Seeing as Randy Orton is still wrestling and Triple H, he only comes in from time to time, and it hasn't really been announced that he had completely retired. So who knows? Anything can happen in WWE. But that would make an excellent match to end that rivalry for good. At number 5, this is a triple threat match, fantasy warfare, against 3 men who have never lost. Brock Lesnar versus Batista versus Roman Reigns. Both men have never been defeated inside Hell in a Cell, so I think that would make an excellent triple threat match for the world to see. And this is a fantasy warfare because Batista said he would never wrestle. But with Batista saying he'll never wrestle again, that leaves us with Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, Brock Lesnar has never lost inside Hell in a Cell. He's been inside the cell twice, both times against The Undertaker, both times successful. So that would make an excellent match to see. Roman versus Brock in the future. Who knows? That's a possibility. A triple threat match with Batista being involved, that's just a fantasy. But Brock versus Roman, possibility. They've already been inside a steel cage match. They fought at WrestleMania twice. They fought at SummerSlam. This would be a perfect place to end it all. So there's that one. At number 4, we have a female fantasy warfare match between Lita and Trish Stratus. As we know, Lita and Trish Stratus had an amazing rivalry in the past, late Attitude to early Ruthless Aggression years. Even though their last match was against each other, Trish Stratus had her last match against Lita, I believe it was sometime in September of 2006, and that was her victorious retirement match. Both of those two have had an amazing rivalry that started from the beginning of the millennium all the way down to late 2006. But this is a fantasy warfare because we've seen women fight inside the cell before. Becky Lynch versus Sasha, Sasha versus Charlotte, Sasha versus Bayley. All female matches have been amazing. And in my personal opinion, Sasha and Becky should have been the main event of 2019, considering that The Fiend and Seth did not end the match with a result but a no contest. Also to the point where fans were chanting for the rival show. That's not good. So back to the fantasy matches. We've seen women's matches in the past, and this would make an amazing fantasy warfare match as far as the female wrestlers are concerned. At number 3, we have Brock Lesnar versus Batista. This is a fantasy match. We won't see it, but this is a great fantasy match to think about. And this is a great fantasy match that you can play on your WWE video games. I have a few of them myself. This match would be great, and it is a dream match to me because both men have appeared in the cell twice. Both men have never been defeated. Batista being in the cell twice. First time at Vengeance 2005 against Triple H. Second time at Survivor Series 2007 against The Undertaker. Both times successful. Brock Lesnar has been in the cell twice. First and second time against The Undertaker. Both times successful at No Mercy 2002 and Hell in a Cell 2015. So a beast and an animal locked inside Hell in a Cell. That cell, I don't think that cell will be able to contain them if that match actually happened. Who do you think would win, the beast or the animal? Let me know in your comments section. Give me feedback on what you think in our fantasy talk. That match would be awesome. Number 2. This is an Armageddon fantasy warfare. Strictly fantasy. And it is an Armageddon match at Hell in a Cell. We all remember the Armageddon match between Rock, Rikishi, Stone Cold, Triple H, Undertaker, and Kurt Angle. A match where Kurt Angle was victorious, only to get a Stone Cold stunner by Stone Cold Steve Austin at the end, after he had already won. But either way, this is an amazing fantasy warfare because it features Karrion Kross, The Fiend, Demon Finn, Kane, Sting, and The Undertaker. That is a dream Armageddon match between 6 of the darkest, eeriest wrestlers in wrestling history, facing off inside Hell in a Cell. Hopefully, in the fantasy, the match will break out and it will go, and some would be fighting on the outside, others will fight on top of the cell. That is a match I would love to play on some of my 2K WWE games. That would be fun to see. And last but not least, we have the number 1 fantasy warfare, and that is Sting versus The Undertaker. Before I get started, let me say this about Sting. I respect and I applaud how AEW is using Sting. AEW has used Sting well. He is in his, I believe he is in his beginning 60s now, and he fights just as well as he did many years ago. And then you had him when he was in WWE. He had 3 matches, lost 2 of them, and won one with John Cena in a tag match where he made Seth Rollins tap out when he was partners with the Big Show. So I'm a little upset that the WWE used Sting and booked him that way. But however, I think now I'm actually more upset because we never got to see Sting face off against The Undertaker. We would have loved to see them face off at WrestleMania. And me personally, I think Shane McMahon should have been replaced by Sting at WrestleMania 32 at Hell in a Cell. That match should have been Sting versus The Undertaker, not Shane versus The Undertaker. Although Shane and The Undertaker stole the show, and Shane gave us a moment that will be remembered for a long time. However, in my personal opinion, I still think it should have been Sting versus The Undertaker. We never got to have that dream match. And as I'm looking back over things, I'm seeing Sting in AEW. He has not lost a match. I'm looking at The Undertaker, just retired last year. We could have seen that match, and we never got a chance to. So all we have now is our video games. So, darn it. I actually played a match on watch mode. I had it on watch mode so I can watch and not play any of the characters. But on my WWE game 2K16, I actually put those 2 inside Hell in a Cell for WrestleMania in 2006. I did my own WrestleMania on my video games each year. And of course, in that match, The Undertaker was victorious. But it was still fun to watch, and I enjoyed every minute of it, even though it was a game. But let me know in the comment section, what do you think? Sting versus The Undertaker inside Hell in a Cell at a WrestleMania. Who do you think would win? Let me know what you think. That's all the time I have for you today, and I'll be back another time with another review on all things wrestling. See you tomorrow night. Peace.